So I was thinking about this the other day. Sometimes parents say really creepy things to their kids. Did you know that? Sometime review the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep prayer. But going beyond that, have you ever had a parent, have you ever been this parent that has said to your kids, watch it, I have eyes in the back of my head? Folks, that is a creepy thing to say. Why don't you just say, my nose is where my big toe is, or, my knee can eat, so careful. I mean, it's such a weird thing to say. And so I'm like, why would a parent say, I have eyes in the back of my head? And the answer to that question is, because they don't. We say, I have eyes in the back of my head as a form of trying to scare our children into doing exactly what they should do because we want them to think that we are going to see it all. But we don't, do we? Come on, be honest, parents. One of the worst moments is when you know something went on between brother and sister, and you're pretty sure you know what it is. And so you punish appropriately, but in the back of your mind, you're like, what if I didn't quite get it right? I'm kind of scared that in heaven someday, God's going to run like my highlight reel of worst botched punishments ever. And I'm hoping in the end they're all going to kind of even out. I was like, well, he didn't deserve that, but he got that one over there. I don't know how that's all going to work. But we don't see everything, but I can tell you this. Jesus does. In fact, Jesus can't take his eyes off of you, not even for a moment. In fact, in this brief series we're doing called Things God Never Says, let's add this to the list. God never says, I wasn't looking. God never says, I wasn't looking. In fact, God can't say, I wasn't looking. Let me show you a little bit of how that works out. First of all, understand this. God sees everything. Say that with me. God sees everything. From the very first part that was read to you today, nothing in all of creation is hidden from God's sight. First thing I want you to let to do this morning is blow your mind. When you walk down the street, if you're in a city, you see thousands of people. If you walk down the street, in Charlotte Hall or down in Lexington Park, maybe you see 15 people. But as you walk along, do you realize you have no idea what they're thinking? You probably don't know where they're going. You don't know what they did yesterday, and you have no idea what they'll do tomorrow. You don't know any of that. But God knows all of that. Every thought, every intention, every action that you're going to take. There are 8 different ways in the New Testament alone that the writers refer to Jesus knows what we're thinking and what we're planning. God never misses anything. In fact, one way to say that would be this. God doesn't blink. God just doesn't blink. Say that with me. God doesn't blink. Now, after that has blown your mind, here's what I want you to do this morning. I want you to embrace that. I want you to love that idea with me for a minute, because our natural inclination when we hear God sees everything is to go, oh no, not good news this morning, Pastor Todd. But I want you to embrace that for a moment. I want you to think about the reality that this could comfort or encourage you. Come on, let's be honest. We've all had a moment in life, maybe a bunch of them, when you feel like you did the right thing and no one noticed. Come on. We've all had that time where we hung in there and no one seemed to care. Or worse yet, we did the right thing and it turned out lousy. We feel like that old adage is like no good deed goes unpunished or something like that. Come on, we've all had moments like that where we feel like, why did I say the right thing? Why did I do the right thing? Why do I even bother trying? Nobody cares. No one notices. In fact, we're going to just take a moment of silence for you to lodge your complaint with God over the most recent time that happened. Because we all got them. We're all like, God, did you see that? Lord, I'm thinking no one else did. But did you? God doesn't blink. He saw it. He saw when that other person tore you up on Facebook. And instead of you descending to their level, you were just silent. And then what happened? All the other people figured that your silence admitted your guilt, and they piled on. And you said, God, I'm not going to lower myself there. But God, did you see that? He does. He sees that. He knows that. Some of you say, man, my ex is so mean to me, and I want to strike back at him, but I'm not going to. Even though it would seem like it would be fair, even for even, God, I'm not going to. God, do you see that? He cussed me out. I wanted to punch him. But I knew that your way was for me to walk away. And God saw that. I went and served in that nursery even though I was exhausted. And I know other people call in sick when they're even less exhausted than I am. And not only did I go serve in that nursery, but I went there and I did it with a smile. And I loved on those kids with all that energy. And God says, saw that. I saw that. I didn't blink. I didn't miss that. Your boss left from work, and you could have cut out 15 minutes early, and no one would have known. But you stayed. And not only did you stay, but you worked hard right to the last minute. That's honorable. And God sees that. God, my partner, my business partner, left me holding the bag. But you know what, Lord? Those people who trusted money when they lent it to me and trusted me, I'm still paying them back even though there are debts that she created or he created. God sees that. He knows. Even when it seems like you don't get the results that you think you deserve. A few weeks ago, I went down to Lowe's and I was buying some stuff. And they had this deal where you could trade in any old cordless drill. It didn't even have to work. You just traded in, and you got 24% off their new 24-volt drill. And I hadn't had a new tool in forever, and my drill had died. So I got flight clearance from my wife, and I went to Lowe's. And I went down, and so you turn in this tool, and you get the new one. But to do that, you got to go to the service desk. You got to fill the thing. So I go to the service desk, and I also had a bunch of paint and some 2x4s and stuff. So I walked up to the lady, and I said, now, I have a 10% off coupon. She said, well, you can't use that on the drill. And I said, well, that's fine. I understand that. But I said, I got other stuff, too. So she goes, oh, okay. And so I don't know if she was just having a rough day or what it was. But so she came around with a little gun, they can shoot with. And I had all my stuff neatly stacked up, easily to be seen. And she, scanned all this stuff and went over. And so tallied up the bill. And I said, have a nice day. And I think I got a grumble back or something. And for those of you who work at Lowe's, that's not the norm. But so I went out the door, and it was really hot out. Big surprise, right? It was really hot out. And so I'm tooling across the parking lot. Now, I have this curse, and that is that my mind is pretty quick with math. And I started calculating about what I had in my cart and what I had paid, and something didn't seem quite right. Now, I wish I didn't have that mind. My wife has a mind where she can recognize a seventh augmented chord from 15 miles away, but don't ask her to do math. But, for me, it's just this kind of thing, and so as I'm pushing my cart through the heat, and I'm kind of opening the thing and trying to throw in the cars, I'm looking, and I realized I had 8 2x4s, and she'd only charged me for 4. Now, I'm almost to my car, and I'm sweating, and I'm not in that great of a mood anyhow for how I got treated the first time, and I'm like, you know what, God, they were neatly stacked. I did not hide those 2x4s. This is not on me, this is on her. And I'm walking a few more steps close to my car, and I was like, and God, why'd you give me that kind of mind? He's like, well, that's the mind I gave you, Todd. And so not because I wanted to save money was I aggravated. It was just all the effort that it was going to be. I turned that cart around, and I wheeled it all the way in, and then I had to wait in line. And so I get up there, and I'm thinking the reward is that when I tell her she's made a mistake, she's going to get to do one of those, oh, I'm so sorry, and I'm so happy that you're so honest, and I'm going to get one of those nice little attaboys, And so I go up and I sort of see, I said, somehow there's a mess up here, and you only charge me for 4 2x4s. She said, oh. She got her scan, kind of went, boop, 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 boop. Said, swipe your card. I said, well, did you at least give me the 10% off? She owed that to me, and so, yes, I did, she said, and so I swiped my card, spent $18 more, and she handed me my receipt. I went out the door, and I'm walking along and I'm thinking, man, you know what? It doesn't matter if other people recognize when you do the right thing. Some of you right now are like, Pastor Todd, I'm trying to hang on to faith, and my life is difficult, and the cards that I've been dealt right now are not easy, and I'm doing my best, and I'm trying to honor God. And some days, I just feel like tossing it all in, and sometimes I wonder if God is even there at all. But he is. It says in Galatians 6, let's not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. And I know you're exhausted, single mom. And I know you wonder sometimes if God even sees or cares that you dealt patiently with your kids today, even though it was exhausting. I know you wanted to put them up on eBay. You're like, God, are you really there? And are you by my side? And will you help me out? And in Matthew 12, quoting the Old Testament, Jesus said this about your father. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. You know what that means? It means when you're at the end of your rope and you've tied a knot, he's not going to let it fray. He's not going to look down and say, you're just not doing good enough, and he's not going to go like that. Because allow yourself to embrace today the reality that God sees everything in your life, and he is for you even when you don't get some of the immediate gratification you wish you had or you think you deserve. Well, let's go to the other side of that equation. God sees everything we think and do and say, including the stuff we wish he didn't see. Come on, let's admit it. Some of us wish that Jesus was more like Superman, so that we could pull the lead shield trick, right? It's like, God, don't look. I'm going to kind of go behind this little lead shield for a moment, and I'm hoping that you won't notice. Listen, can I tell you something? As you live your life, it doesn't matter if you shut the lights off. It doesn't matter if you pick a new screen name. It doesn't matter if you travel to another state. If you're willingly disobeying God, he's not missing it. He's not blinking. You're not fooling him or pulling the wool over his eyes. You can say to yourself, man, I hope he wasn't paying attention to what I was doing with the TV remote the other night. Or I hope he wasn't listening when I had that little tirade on the phone with that person who couldn't fix my computer. Man, I hope God doesn't hold against me what I thought about my neighbor, or what I said about my ex, or what I laughed at in the break room, or what I did the other night when I thought no one else is watching. Now, this might not be fun to hear, but I become a false teacher if I tell you that you can keep secrets from God. Ashley Madison might help you keep secrets from your spouse, so they don't do it very well, do they? And Scope might allow you to keep secret from someone that you're having problems drinking. And that real churchy look you have today might keep all of us from knowing what you're really up to. But God knows. And he sees it all. There's nothing hidden from him. He knows you, he knows you, he knows you. And so God sees everything. Here's the second thing this passage teaches is that God ignores nothing. He ignores nothing. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him to whom we must what? Give account. We're going to give account for everything we do in our lives. He's not going to just go, you know what, I'm just going to kind of ignore that. You know, some of us wish that God would kind of do this. All right, I know what you're up to, so I'm going to kind of, I'm kind of looking, but I'm kind of cutting you some slack here. You see, what we're saying is, God, I know you never blink, but are you willing to wink? But see, God doesn't wink. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, you're only human, so we got this. Let's go. Right? I mean, some of us want to lodge this complaint against God over our humanity. God can't really expect me to grow in righteousness because, I'm just flesh and I'm just human and I can't do it. So God, really, here's the deal. You know I'm going to mess up, so please, would you just periodically ignore it? I know you can't blink, but just wink. But here's the problem with that. When did ignoring something ever help it? If you really believe sin is a problem, asking God to ignore your sin is not a solution. I mean, think about it for a minute. If you have cancer, what's the best plan? I'm going to pretend I don't. Nothing makes cancer better quicker than pretending you don't have cancer, right? That's no solution. If your brother keeps beating you up, do you call mom and dad compassionate? Because they're like, we're just going to keep overlooking that. Is that a solution in your household? If you're drowning in addiction, is the best idea just to ignore it and pretend you're not? Of course not. Ignoring problems is never, ever a solution. Ignoring violence doesn't make violence cease, and pretending you're not an addict doesn't make you less an addict. And ignoring your marriage problems doesn't heal your marriage. Neither does ignoring sin solve our problem with sin. Actually, what begins the solution to sin is allowing God to expose sin. It's allowing him to bring it to light so that we say, wow, that's reality that I've got to deal with. Years ago, I was chopping down a tree on Grandma Parker's land, on mom and dad's land. And I've got a lot of great mother-in-law jokes running through my mind today, and I'm trying to decide whether to go easy on her with all of her family around or to dive in deeper so they just kind of know what it is. But so I don't know why I was chopping down a tree. Maybe it was just to get away from her for a couple hours. I don't know. But I don't make a habit of chopping down trees, so I'm not sure what I was doing. But so I'm chopping down a tree on their property, and I'm swinging the axe. And one time I swung the axe, and when I hit the tree, a shard that must be a sliver. I don't believe trees break into shards. And so a sliver came flying straight back out, hit me right in the eye. I mean, I dropped the axe. Ever been impacted in the eye? It's bad. I know there are a lot of pains in life, and a lot of them are bad. Eye pain is up there. And I mean, I dropped to the ground, and when I got up, you do the old rub it, and you're trying to blink it, and you're trying to open it, and it hurts so bad. And I'm like, okay, well, how this goes. It hurts worst at first, and then it's going to get better. But after about 3 or 4 minutes, I still couldn't open it, and so I walked up the hill, laid down on the couch. Diane comes and says, what's wrong? And I was like, your mom hit me. And 2 down, 1 to go. And so I'm laying there, and I can't get my eye open. So I'm like, I guess it's just going to get better. I'm just going to lay here and try to say, oh, it hurts so bad. I couldn't get any relief at all. And finally, Diane said, honey, we got to go to the emergency room. So I go to the emergency room, and the doctor's like, you need to open it. So I go, like, if I could open it, I wouldn't be here right now. And so, he's pulling it open. He shines this bright light in. And he's like, yeah. He says, you've actually got a sliver that's stuck in your eye. I'm like, well, how do we get that out? We just wash it out, right? He's like, no. He says, I'm going to have to pluck that thing out. I'm like, what? And can I tell you this? Procedure, horrible. Relief, instant. Man, when he pulled that thing out of my eye, I didn't know whether to punch him or hug him. It was just like, oh my goodness. And it started to feel better because here's the reality. I could have walked around all day long going, oh, he's okay. Oh, he's okay. My eye was not okay. And until he exposed it in the light and then dealt with it, there was going to be no solution. And so he pulled it out. Ephesians 5 says, everything exposed by the light becomes visible, for it is light that makes everything visible. That's why it said, wake up, O sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. When God begins to break light upon your life, it's like dawn. It's time to get up. It's time to begin to have life, and he'll take you out of that death by shining that light on you. And saying, are you going to deal with it? And this morning, God is shining some light in this room. And you know what it is in your life that God needs to deal with, or you know what area you desperately need his help. Stop asking him to wink. Stop saying, God, can you just kind of grant me a pass, and say, God, what are we going to do to deal with this? Because here's the final point. It's wonderful. God gives mercy for anything. Come on, say that with me. God gives mercy for anything. We don't have a high priest who's unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. We have one who's been tempted in every way just as we are, yet was without sin. So let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. You see, instead of shaking your fist at God and saying, when are you going to leave me alone? When are you going to stop staring at me? When are you going to stop watching my life? Instead, we cling to God and say, God, don't leave me alone. Not here, not now, especially not here and now. With all that I'm suffering under and I'm trying to do the right thing, or God, in all those secrets that I've been keeping from you, whichever side of the coin it is, you say, you know what, God, don't leave me distant. Draw me near. Draw me near. She's related to me. Don't worry about it. It's all good. And way cuter than me, too. You see, the real cool part is that as Jesus sees everything in our lives, he doesn't run away. He runs in. He draws near. If you think about it, don't we all long for someone in our life who knows us really well and still loves us really deeply? Let me just do a favor to all of you who are dating right now, okay? Free advice, all right? Free advice. Those are dating. When you're dating someone, they put their best foot forward. At least that's how most people work it. They put their best foot forward. So when you're dating someone, if you see something that's an issue, magnify it about times 4.5. And that's what you'll get, when you're married and you're together all the time. Why is that? Because when there's a certain amount of distance, because you only have known each other for a short period of time, or you still haven't discovered anything about each other, there's ways in which we can be fooled. But you see, the longer we're together and the more we're together, the more you'll see the real person. Now, by the way, as you're seeing that real person, they're starting to see the real to you. So easy, all right? And here's the thing. No one knows you better than God. And he still loves you. He still draws near. He's that high priest who's able to sympathize with what you go through. And then he says, we can approach, not push away. We can approach the throne with confidence because we are going to receive mercy and grace. Mercy for every time that it's been wrong, and grace for all the ways that we're doing the right thing and we're struggling to do it. We're going to get those things from God because he's not pushing away to help us in our time of need. He's a God who readily forgives. He readily forgives. You see, because the real freedom and the real life comes in not trying to cover up, not trying to find the magic lead shield that hides us from God, but in allowing him to expose our sin and then to repent of it. For in allowing him to expose our weakness and then embracing his strength. I want us to bow our heads together as we close today.